If you're comfortable, let me tell you a story, one that begins not with magic spells or royal castles, but with a quiet workshop, the smell of wood shavings, and a lonely old man who wished, more than anything else in the world, for a child. Long ago, in a small Italian village by the sea, there lived a poor woodcarver named Geppetto. He was a gentleman with silver hair, kind eyes, and hands rough from years of honest work. His workshop was tiny, barely larger than a single room, but it was filled with wonders, painted puppets, wooden animals, toy soldiers, and musical boxes that chimed softly when the wind passed through the cracks in the window. Though Geppetto made toys for children all across the village, his workshop was painfully quiet when the doors closed at night. He had no family of his own, no child to laugh or argue or grow beside him. When the lamps were dim and the fire burned low, he would often sit alone at his bench and sigh. "One good boy," he would murmur to himself. "That is all I wish for, just one." One evening, after selling his last puppet for a handful of coins, Geppetto found a strange piece of pine wood washed ashore near the harbor. It was smooth, warm to the touch, and lighter than it should have been. As he lifted it, he thought, just for a moment, that he heard it sigh. "Nonsense," he muttered, smiling at his own foolishness, and carried it home. That night, as rain tapped gently against the roof, Geppetto began to carve. He worked slowly and carefully, shaping arms, legs, a small round head. As he carved the mouth, he laughed, for it seemed to smile back at him. When he shaped the eyes, he felt a shiver, as though they were watching him. At last, exhausted but pleased, Geppetto leaned back and admired his work. The puppet stood upright against the wall, stiff and wooden, but somehow full of promise. "I shall call you Pinocchio," said Geppetto warmly, "and tomorrow I will teach you to be a good boy." That night, as Geppetto slept in his chair by the fire, a soft blue glow filled the workshop. A gentle fairy appeared, her voice like wind through bells. "Geppetto," she whispered, "your wish has been heard." She touched the wooden puppet lightly with her wand. "Pinocchio, awaken. You shall live, speak, and move. But remember, being alive is not the same as being good. Only truth, courage, and unselfishness can make you a real boy." With that, the fairy vanished. At dawn, Geppetto awoke to a sound that froze his breath. "Father!" He opened his eyes to see the puppet dancing around the workshop, arms waving wildly, feet stamping on the floor. "Pinocchio!" Geppetto gasped. The wooden boy laughed, spun, and nearly knocked over a chair. "I can walk, I can talk, I'm alive." Geppetto wept with joy. He hugged the wooden boy so tightly that Pinocchio squeaked. "My son," Geppetto whispered, "I will teach you right from wrong. You will go to school, you will grow wise, you will make me proud." Pinocchio nodded eagerly, but even as he nodded, his eyes wandered, curious and restless. The very next day, Geppetto sold his coat to buy Pinocchio a schoolbook. He pressed it into his hands and said firmly, "Go straight to school. Do not talk to strangers. Do not follow trouble. Pinocchio promised, but the world was loud and colorful and full of temptation. On his way to school, Pinocchio heard music, bright, joyful music. A puppet theater stood nearby, banners waving, drums beating. Painted puppets danced and sang, and the crowd laughed and cheered. Pinocchio slowed. School can wait, he told himself. Just a little fun. He sold his schoolbook for a ticket and rushed inside. The puppets on stage froze when they saw him. He's one of us, they cried, but he walks without strings. They danced around Pinocchio, lifting him onto the stage. The crowd roared with delight. But behind the curtains watched the puppet master, Fire Eater, a towering man with a voice like thunder. At first, Fire Eater raged. A puppet without strings, I shall throw him on the fire. Pinocchio trembled and begged for mercy, speaking of his poor father waiting at home. Something softened in the giant's heart. He wiped his eyes and grunted. Go, he said, tossing Pinocchio 5 gold coins, but learn to obey. Pinocchio ran from the theater, pockets jingling, heart racing. On the road, he met 2 charming strangers, a sly fox and a smooth-talking cat. 5 gold coins, the fox said sweetly. Why, you could turn those into a fortune. How? Pinocchio asked. In the field of miracles, the cat purred. Plant them in the ground, and by morning a tree of gold will grow. It sounded wonderful. Too wonderful, but Pinocchio wanted riches. He wanted to make Geppetto proud without effort, so he followed them straight into trouble. They tricked him, stole his coins, and left him crying beneath the stars. And when he tried to explain what happened, when he tried to lie to hide his shame, his nose grew. It stretched longer and longer until birds perched upon it. Pinocchio screamed in terror. The blue fairy appeared once more, her eyes sad but kind. Why did you lie, Pinocchio? She asked. I was afraid, he whispered. She waved her wand, and his nose shrank back to normal. Remember, she said gently, lies may seem easy, but they always reveal themselves. Pinocchio promised, again, to be good, but promises are light when lessons are heavy. He ran from school once more, this time with other boys who spoke of a place where there were no rules. Pleasure Island. No teachers, no bedtime, no consequences. For a while it was wonderful. Pinocchio laughed and played, forgetting his father entirely, until the change began. The boys' ears stretched, their voices turned to brays. One by one they became donkeys, sold away for labor. Pinocchio felt his own ears growing. He cried in horror. You were warned, whispered a voice in his heart. He escaped into the sea, where exhaustion dragged him under the waves. But fate was not finished with him. He awoke on the shore, guided by a faithful cricket who had tried again and again to steer him right. Together they searched for Geppetto. At last, Pinocchio learned the truth. His father had gone looking for him and had been swallowed by a monstrous whale. Without hesitation, Pinocchio dove into the sea. Inside the vast, dark belly of the beast, he found Geppetto, thin, tired, but alive. "Father!" Pinocchio cried. Geppetto wept. "My boy, you came back." Together they planned their escape. Pinocchio gathered wood, built a fire, and made the whale sneeze with smoke. With a mighty blast, they were expelled into the sea and washed safely onto shore. Pinocchio worked day and night afterward. He cared for Geppetto, he studied, he told the truth, and he thought of others before himself. One night, as he slept beside his father's bed, the blue fairy appeared again. "Pinocchio," she said softly, "you have learned what it means to be brave, honest, and kind." She touched his wooden chest. "Awaken." Pinocchio opened his eyes and felt warmth. His hands were no longer wood. His heart beat. His breath rose and fell. He was a real boy. When Geppetto awoke and saw him, flesh and blood and smiling, he fell to his knees in gratitude. "My son," he whispered, "you were real all along." And so Pinocchio learned that being human is not about how you are made, but how you choose to live. And if you listen closely, in quiet workshops and honest hearts, you may still hear that lesson echo, soft as a cricket song, steady as a promise kept. Thank you all for listening to the story. Please support me with a like and a channel subscription. Wishing you all the best in life.